Assalamu alaikum everybody. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Salam again, everybody. Salam, everybody. Good morning for some of you. I hope you guys are taking advantage of the last 10 nights. And I would just, before we get started, just to give you guys advice, because right now what we're doing is we're learning. Obviously, this is education about Fatiha, right? But then I remind you again that the point of getting education about Quran or learning tafsir about something is not the education itself. Like I keep telling you, I think I've repeated this every week that we've met so far with Fatiha, that you learning the words and the root words and what different scholars say, at the end of the day, all this is just a tool. And we're actually going to talk about that a lot today, because Fatiha, embedded in this is this lesson, that education about Islam or Quran or whatever is not the end-all be-all. It's like half the battle, right? So afterwards, what we're going to do, and we did this last time as well, but we're going to probably do this every Tanzeel from now on, at least whenever I'm speaking, is that we're going to do the education part, the tafsir part, and then we're going to do what's called tadabbur afterwards, where we're doing reflections together. If you don't want to, so I'm going to end it. We're going to stop the recording. The mic is going to turn off. If you want to stay afterwards to reflect together, you're allowed to, you're able to. And if you don't, obviously you can leave any time. You don't have to stay even to the whole thing. So whoever wants to, we're going to do reflections together afterwards, inshallah. But I remind you again, being in the last 10 nights, you're doing the education part, that's awesome. Just make sure that you're taking advantage of the 10 nights also spiritually. So make sure, just for example, a good hack that you can use if you're not able to stay up all night, because I can't stay up all night. I have a 9 to 5 and I have a boss that's always on my case. So I need to work, right? I need to go to sleep early. But one hack you can kind of use if you're in my spot, if you pray Isha at the masjid, like with the jama'ah, what's the reward for that actually? Who knows? What's that? Prayed half the night. If you go to Isha, it's as if you prayed half the night, even though you're asleep. You can go straight to bed, but you're going to get the reward as if you're standing for half the night. And then if you wake up and go to Fajr at the masjid, what reward is that? No, it's actually one full. So you get 1.5 times, like 1.5 times XP events on like video games, like 2x events or whatever. There's like a 1.5 event. Plus it's last 10 nights. Plus, if you catch a 27th night, if you do this all 10 days, you're going to get one where it's basically get like hundreds of lifetimes over of just praying the night. It's like a lotto. Wallah. It's like the easiest lotto you can win. It's like a 1 in 10 chance. So if you go to do this every night, let alone whatever you do extra, then wallah, we don't know the rewards Allah's going to get. It's like not even countable, So it's just a reminder for both of us that the education piece, obviously it's good, but don't forget the point. Don't forget the point of this. Can I talk about one other thing? Actually, someone sent me a good question. He's not here yet, though. Khalid, he's not here. But he asked me a good question. I guess I'll catch up with him afterwards. He should have been in our time, so it's not my fault. I already delayed. But he was telling me, he's like, it's cool that we're learning Fatiha, and we're going word by word, which I think is cool. We don't get to do that all the time, go word by word and talk about the benefits and stuff like that. The problem is, when you're in salah, you don't really get to pause and, especially if the imam is leading, like Sheikh Jafar is leading, you're not able to stop and be like, Alhamdulillah, what do we talk about? Alhamdulillah, what does that mean again? He's on Malik al-Madin already, you know what I mean? And then you go on, right? It's difficult. So I'll give you one piece of advice. Number one, make sure, especially when you're by yourself, that you pause between every word, between every ayah at least. Like say, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, pause and think about it. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, pause and think about it. And again, the question you're asking yourself is, what does this mean to me right now? How do I reflect on this right now? What does this mean? What does Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim mean to me in my life? What does Malik Yawmiddin mean to me in my life? So on and so forth, right? So, and then in salah, just practice. Try your best that when someone else is leading, that you have a good understanding of what these ayahs mean enough that when someone else is reciting it, that you have a good understanding what's going on. Okay? So, and what I'm going to do at the end of this is share my notes. so that if you ever want to, you can go back to just everything we talked about. I'm going to try to make them sane, and then that way you guys can just open up a Google Doc and go back, like, what does alhamdulillah mean again? Oh, this is the notes. And I'll do like diagrams and put pictures and stuff if we need it. Okay, anyway, let's start again. Those are just openings. We'll start again with A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Okay, so we did a lot so far. What did we cover up until? So the people that have been here the whole time, for all two, for both sessions so far. What have we covered up to so far? Yeah, we covered up to Maliki Yawmiddin, which is very considerable actually, because that is the introduction, as we said. Actually, let's start from the very beginning. Who's the audience of Fatiha? Who can remind me? People whose fitrah is intact. People who you can say their soul is still intact. There's still light in them. That is the audience of Fatiha. So it's not just believers. It includes non-Muslims as well that still have like a propensity to believe. What's really cool about this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but what I love about this is that as soon as you get into Baqarah, the assumed language is you accepted. It's really cool. The assumed language of Baqarah, the audience of Baqarah are Muslims actually. So like a non-Muslim, or like a kafir for example, or mushrik or whatever, they read Baqarah, they might not get it. It might not make sense to them because that's not the audience anymore. Yeah? It assumes, Quran by the way, it's beautiful. Quran, it comes from qarn. Qarn is like a spring that flows. A river that flows is called a qarn. It's as if it flowed from, disbelief or non-belief into belief because of the Fatiha. Like that's what this thing is supposed to do, not just to non-Muslims, but to believers every time they recite it. That's what this surah is supposed to be for us, right? But anyway, we talked about the psychology of like a non-Muslim or even a Muslim maybe that's not practicing whatever, and they're reading through Fatiha, and we talked about how the things that they already kind of had in their heart, Fatiha is just sort of giving it back to them, but giving them words. Like it's as if they didn't have the words to explain these feelings in their heart and the thoughts in their head, and Fatiha is spelling it out for them. So they're going through their life and they're people of gratitude and they read Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise and thanks are for Allah. Rabbil Alameen, the master of all nations. And these people might even actually be thinking about that they're thinking, I have a creator. When I make something, like my brother, you have a business, right? When you make something, you own it. That's your property now because you created it. If a person of sound fitrah, a person of sound tendency to believe, they have a decent ruh, they still have light in their chest, Muslim or non-Muslim, when they think about the fact that they're created, they're like, well, that means the one that created me, what? Owns me. They're in charge of me. You know what's, I bring this back to, because one of the words of Rabb is Sayyid, the one who's in charge, meaning the one that gets to decide what's right and what's wrong. You can say is a Sayyid. You know what's really funny about this? I also talked about this the other day, is a really cool thought, is that no one knows best how to use a product than the manufacturer of the product. You want to hear a funny thing? If, the Q-tips, like what we call ear cleaners, if you read the back of the box, I think the first warning, check for yourself, the first warning of the box is what? Don't put in your ear. Did you know that? They're not meant for the ear. They're meant for makeup and other, they're not going to not let you use it because they make sales. But on the back of the box, the manufacturer is like, you put this in your ear, you're going to damage your ear. I know, actually, when I was a kid, I damaged my ear with it. I'm still dealing with the consequences, actually, subhanAllah. So the manufacturer will tell you what this thing is for. Here's how to use it. Here's how not to use it. So this person's thinking, if someone manufactured me, they must, number one, own me. They must be in charge. They must know what's right and wrong more than I do. There must be the Rabb. And this Rabb must be the Rabb for everybody. Rabbil Alameen, not just me. And then they keep thinking, and they're like, whoever this is, I don't know his name, they must truly love and care for all of his creation, whoever he is. Because you think about, for example, your heartbeat, how much blood gushes through your body, gallons of blood. You have, I forgot the number, but it's just thousands and thousands of gallons of blood that rush through, I think like every week or every month or every year or whatever. All this blood that rushes through. You don't have to worry about your heart beating. You don't have to worry about what if my mind is not going to work with my legs today. You don't have to worry about do I have to think about my breath. Whoever is in charge of us must completely in and out love us and care for us so deeply on a level that is unmatched with any other creation. And then in Fatiha, what do you have next? Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim. The extremely loving and caring, the always loving and caring. We talked about Ar-Rahman meaning that he's extremely loving and caring, and that's for this world, right? Ar-Rahman is for all creation, Muslim or non-Muslim, Kafir or Muslim, or it doesn't matter at all. He is Ar-Rahman, the loving and caring for all creation in this world. And Ar-Rahim was for what? The afterlife. That is Ar-Rahim. He's the loving and caring, the merciful, for only reserved for the believers on the Day of Judgment. Meaning people who accepted his rububiyyah, people that accepted his lordship, if you want to say, his masterhood, him being the master, and abided by the Sayyid, by the one who gets to decide right and wrong, they get Ar-Rahim. Everyone benefits from Ar-Rahman. Everybody. Fir'aun benefited from Ar-Rahman. He benefited immensely from Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman is the one you don't have to ask. There is no asking Ar-Rahman, have mercy on me. No, you have that. Remember, we have it. What am I talking about? The slides are right here. We talked about Ar-Rahman in some detail. I'm not going to quiz you, but we said 3 things about Ar-Rahman is it's extreme, it's immediate happening right now, and it's temporary, something can get taken away. Meaning you die and Ar-Rahman basically subsides for you. And now what comes to the question is, do you deserve Ar-Rahim or not? Does that make sense? Ar-Rahim, the 2 meanings there. Number 1 I put was, it's permanent, always has been, always will be, and it's not necessarily happening now because it's reserved, it's a special reservation for the future. That's the difference between these two. Again, look how, subhanAllah, these two complete each other. Where one was, I don't want to say deficient, astaghfirullah, but where one word, you can say, not the quality of Allah, but where one word was deficient, the other one filled in. It's like 2 puzzle pieces that fit into each other. Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. He takes care of you now, he takes care of you in the future. And this person's thinking that's exactly who he is. Like this person, by the way, we talked about afterlife a little bit last time. When you look at like people getting, you know how Allah quotes people on Day of Judgment a lot? He'll take quotes from the future and put it in Quran. You know what they call Allah more often than they call him Allah in Quran that I've noticed? What do they call him? Like even disbelievers on Judgment Day, what do they call Allah? Who do they call Allah? What name do they use? They use Ar-Rahman. Isn't that weird? Like I'm talking straight up disbelievers, by the way. Kuffar, like Fir'aun, these people, like criminals. They'll be raised and they'll say things like, who woke us up from our sleep? Oh, هذا ما وعد Ar-Rahman. Weird. This is what not Allah promised, which by the way, all of a sudden they're believers. All of a sudden they're using God promised. But they're not saying this is what God promised. They're saying this is what who promised? The extremely loving and caring Ar-Rahman promised. That's weird. Why are they using that word? It's as if every human being implicitly knows Allah is Ar-Rahman. Number 1, that's the one thing you can take from it. Even kuffar, people who disbelieve, they know the number 1 quality of Allah is what? Ar-Rahman. So much so that when they refer back to God, they don't say the word God, they don't say Allah, they say Ar-Rahman. Even they know that about Him. Even the people that are like, oh, if there's a God, well, all these problems that happen in the world, like the suffering, even they'll call Him Ar-Rahman because they know. Number 1, that's implicitly. And number 2, that's because even people that do da'wah, they don't shut up about Ar-Rahman, do they? They'll talk about Allah loves you. That's like the introduction. Even in Fatiha, it's sort of the introduction, is it not? Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim is like right in the beginning. It's like an introduction. Here's a major thing you need to know about God before you move on to the rest of the book, is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim. So they kept hearing about it, and they were like, shut up, I don't want to talk about it, who cares? But then when they wake up from their sleep, what word do they use? The word that they told you to shut up about their whole life, Ar-Rahman. It's crazy. They know about Allah being loving and merciful. It's amazing. Yeah, when Allah captures a quote, the psychology that He exposes in a person, by the way, subhanAllah, right? Like you knew Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. And then comes a problem that Malik Yawmiddin solves. What is the problem if you stop there? If you have this is an grand introduction of Allah and understanding of Him. What's the problem when you stop there at Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim? What is it? Yeah. Number 1, it's not balanced. But even in this person's perspective, going a step further, is that they notice suffering in the world. They notice injustice in the world. They notice a genocide in Gaza. They notice genocide of whoever. It's not the only genocide that happened in humanity. It's not the only injustice that happens in humanity. They'll know about the 2008 stock market crash or the crash in '08, and they'll know who did it and what they did, and they'll realize that they didn't even go to jail for it. Well, you listen to those documentaries, you get upset that people died because of the way people handled money in 2008. People died. Millions of people died because of homelessness, because of what happened back then. People got kicked out of their homes because someone got greedy. And no one went to jail. No one went to jail. So this person's like, he's Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, but he's noticing all this injustice. And let me walk you through something here. It's going to sound blasphemous a little bit, but it's true. If there was no judgment day, let's bring this back to, let's put Islam to the side. If there's no judgment day, there is no God. Okay? If there's no judgment day, there's no God. Let me explain this. If, I'm going to go through the logical thing, we'll talk about a little bit. If God exists, and you correct me here if you think there's something wrong with the logic. If God exists, then he must be perfect. So far, so good? If he's not perfect, he's not God, because he must be perfect. Okay. The person looking around him, by the way, sees everything built with perfection, yes? Down to the snowflake, down to the atom, everything's perfect. Everything's, Allah calls himself the Musawwir, the one who delicately and in a detailed fashion builds everything. You remember like Toy Story 2, I think it was, where Woody was broken and that dude got that like weird glasses thing, and then like he took out those specific tools and like colored him in. This might be like a millennial reference at this point because no one watched Toy Story 2. But who watched? Okay, thank you guys. I appreciate it, bro. You know what I mean? It's like he took out the doll, they took out specific tools, and he brought out that weird thing where it's like a magnifying, whatever, and he colored him in. That's like al-Musawwir. Like everything was delicate, everything was perfectly proportioned. And the person reading the Quran knows this. Like it's a physical reality. The more you study anatomy, forget religion. You study anatomy, biology, you're like, dude, this is insane. That's like one of the biggest awakenings for me spiritually was my was it AP or was it honors biology or anatomy class I took. I'm like, this is amazing. What perfect proportion. SubhanAllah, right? But anyway, if he built everything perfectly, that gives me the idea that, he must be what? Perfect. If he's not perfect, then he's not God. But that also means that his attributes must be perfect. He must be perfectly loving and perfectly, the creator and perfectly fair. He must be perfectly just. But around me, I see what? Perfect justice? No. Far from perfect justice. The furthest thing from perfect justice. Because we have free will. So if I were to stop here, I would be like, well, there's no justice, so there's no God. And I stop right there. Can I teach you why that's intellectually lazy? That means that you sit through a biology class, and you sit through anatomy, and you just forget the classes. So you're a farmer and you're looking up at the world and you're thinking about how perfectly proportioned everything is. From down to your own hand, maybe you learned about the golden ratio, maybe. If not, Google it. It's an amazing thing about the way that the nature is built. Everything is proportioned out to like this such a beautiful ratio. He's looking at his own hand, how he's proportioned out, his own children. He's looking at the sky. It's like, man, everything's perfect. But then, let me teach you why this is lazy. If you stop here at this logic, he sees injustice and goes, but that's imperfect, so there's no God. That's lazy. That's very lazy. Because at that point, what you're declaring is, everything's perfect, but he missed out, astaghfirullah, on this one thing. You see how that's lazy? You're assuming he made a mistake here, where he made a mistake nowhere else. Does that make sense? This is like the message to even the atheist. That's what you're proposing. That he got 99.999% musawwir, he's good, but justice he messed up. Astaghfirullah. That's what you're saying. Rather, this person knows everything's in pairs. Male, female, heavens, earth, everything's in pairs. Every single thing he knows is in pairs. He has his own pair. Yeah? He's staring at everything in pairs his whole life. And then he is able to assume that this life must also have a what? A pair. And there must be a day where all wrongs are made right. And that's Judgment Day. So we'll go back to the logic again. That if there's a God, he must be, what's the word? Perfect. And that must mean he must be perfectly just. And if he's not perfectly just, then he's not what? God. But we know Allah is perfectly just, and that perfect justice is not for this world, it's for when? Maliki Yawmiddin. He's the owner and the king of every small and every large occurrence that happens on Yawm ad-Din. Deen means what again? What is it? No, not resurrection. Not resurrection. Deen does not mean resurrection. You say Qiyamah is resurrection. Day of standing. No, standing. What's Deen? Yeah. Deen like Dain. Dain is a loan. Deen, Yawm ad-Din is a day you pay back a loan. The day of payback. The day of justice even is a good word for it. The day of just deen. The Arabs used to say, "Kama tudinu tudan." They have beautiful axioms actually. The way that you deal is the way you're dealt with. I treat you the way you treat me. Kama tudinu tudan. This is the day that you're treated the way you treated others. Perfect justice. See how this is a perfect introduction of Allah, wallah. It's just perfect. Like nothing's missing. The rest of the book is just more elaboration on these attributes, subhanAllah. That's all it is. And this person reaches Malik Yawmiddin and is like, okay, I think I'm ready. You ever meet a convert that had their I'm ready moment? You know? This is the I'm ready moment. And by the way, this is this next ayah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, is the I'm ready convert moment for not just converts, for every Muslim. Muslims, every time they recite Fatiha, it's as if they converted all over again. And you can say, you know how like we say converts, their deeds are forgiven when they convert, like whatever happened before, they're good. To the extent that even, this might hurt a little bit, but even if an IDF soldier, repents and goes to Allah and accepts, he's forgiven. No matter what atrocities you commit, literally to any extent, to anything big or small, you could have done the worst of the worst. We might all hate you still, maybe, but Ar-Rahman does not hate you. A couple things about Ar-Rahman. Sorry, a couple more things. Did you know that like Allah in Quran, because I gotta say this because especially Christians, they get this kind of twisted a little bit. Allah in the book never says he hates someone. Did you know that? He doesn't use that language. What language does Allah use against like even the worst, like Fir'aun? What language does Allah use for him? La yuhibbu. He doesn't ever say hate. He says, I don't love them. But he'll never say, I what? Hate them. You know how this is beautiful? Remember we talked about last time this like balance of love and care on this side, and what's on this side? Punishment, right? So it's not justice, but it's punishment. Love and care, punishment. And what's in the middle? Justice. Kama tudinu tudan. I will treat you the way that you treated others. That's Yawmiddin, right? Allah is saying, I don't love you, meaning I'm going to treat you with justice. La yuhibbu. He doesn't ever say I hate. He doesn't even say I don't like. La yuhibbu, I don't love. It brings him back to justice, subhanAllah. It's Ar-Rahman. Even in the language against criminals, it's like, it's not punishment. It's not anger. It's just, look, you're going to get what you dealt. You understand? It's a beautiful thing. But anyway, this person, they go through all these lessons. They go through Ar-Rahman Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, everything's done. And then finally we have إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Let's go through the wording and go back to how this person is thinking a little bit. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. This one and especially the next one is going to be a little bit of time to go over, inshallah. But let's go from the beginning. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ. Let's start with that one because you can split it in half. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ and إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ. Let's go إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ first. This language is super strange. Number one, it's very strange language. So far, Fatiha's language is super straightforward. There's nothing broken about the language. And when I say broken, I don't mean incorrect. In Arabic, you can break language, in English too. When you break language, a new emotion comes out of it. It's weird. It's a weird concept, but I'll teach you what I mean. And I'll say it again though. In Arabic is a principle in grammar that when you break the expected order of things, a new meaning comes out. So for example, if I say, I love you. I love you. That's normal language. There's nothing like special about the phrase, I love you. But if I say you, I just love. What does that mean? Like especially you, exclusively you, man, I just love. When you talk like Yoda, basically, right? Like you, I love, like that. When you start speaking like that, new meanings new words and new emotions start coming out. So far in Fatiha, there's nothing inherently emotional about it. We actually said that this whole phrase so far, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin, I won't go into the grammar again. Hopefully you remember it. If not, whatever, doesn't matter. But I'll tell you right now, it is both intellectual and emotional, actually. Actually, it is. If he started in Alhamdulillah ila akhirih until the end of it, then it's purely intellectual. Purely. If he said Lillahi alhamd, for Allah only is praise and thanks, then it's purely emotional. The logic is gone. When he said Alhamdulillah, the normal form, it's both together, meaning your relationship with Allah is both what? Intellectual and what? Emotional. It's got to be both. Scholars that studied and like memorized books, still cry at night because they understand, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, the emotion and the intellectual, understanding at the same time. I will tell you right now, no other religion has this. No other religion has this. There's not one single other religion on the face of the earth where Allah invites you to have an intellectual and an emotional relationship with Him. It's either all intellectual or all what? Emotional. It's mostly emotional, most of the time. For us, we have a middle nation. We're a middle nation. I told you Fatiha is balanced. I told you that word already. So we have both with Allah. Yeah? But Iyaka na'budu, now we're switching over to emotion. Because we're saying you na'budu. We do ibadah. I'm talking about the word na'budu. What does na'budu mean? Worship. It actually is two things. Worship is one of them. Like I do salah for you and I do zakat for you. That's worship, fine. I do like these acts that you told me to do is ibadah, fine. But na'budu has two words in it. Abida ya'budu and abuda ya'budu, I believe. Okay, these two words inside. One of them is worship, but then you have abuda. Abida, I believe, is the one that's to worship. Abuda means to enslave yourself. Willingly, by the way. Willingly. So the way you can translate this so far, it sounds super annoying because it's like two words in Arabic. But Iyaka na'budu, it is exclusively and only to you that we collectively give ourselves willingly to you. You understand? Iyaka, to you, na'bud. We give ourselves. Now, what's the difference between worship and slavery? We talked about Allah being Rabb. We talked about that extensively so far. So we won't go back to that. Maybe if you want, we can remind each other afterwards. But now this is kind of like the pair of the word Rabb, is that we're using the word abd. That we willingly call ourselves abd. Why am I using the word willingly, by the way? Even just in the language. Just in the language. Allah's teaching us how to praise Him. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, you have all praise and thanks. You're the master. You are the most extremely merciful. You're the owner of Judgment Day. Iyaka na'budu. Notice how the language even shifted. We were making declaration number 3, and then Allah's teaching us how to talk to Him. Iyaka na'budu. Man, I give up. You know how like we have the Declaration of Independence? Iyaka na'budu is the declaration of dependence. Iyaka na'budu. I give up. Literally. Just like going back to just fundamentals, man, that we ignore every day. The word Islam, what does that mean? Submission. It's literally like when you start salah and you go like this, we're taught to like go like this and you start and you go up to your ears like that. And we focus on the fiqh. Is it to your lobes or is it to whatever? But even just think about it in principle. When's the only other time you go like this in your life? When someone pulls a Glock on you or something, dude. That's when you're like, all right, okay. Do whatever you want. I surrender. And here you're saying, Iyaka na'budu, we surrender. Same principle. I give up. It's as if you were so intellectually and emotionally overpowered by the first 3 ayat about Allah that you're like, dude, I give up. Iyaka na'budu. Willingly. Because He didn't say, ubudu, worship, enslave yourselves to me. Then you can say, okay, then it's against my will, right? But no, Iyaka na'budu, we willingly give ourselves up to you. You'll notice, by the way, one core principle so far in the language of La ikraha fi din. What does that mean? What's La ikraha fi din mean? I hope you guys know this. Come on, don't scare me. La ikraha fi din, what does that mean? There's no what? Hate? No, not hate. Compulsion. Thank you. There's no compulsion in the deen. You cannot force even your own child. You can't. You can't compel even your own child to do things they don't want to do. Iyaka na'budu, the introduction we have to Allah, is enough for this decent person to be like, you know what? Where do I sign? Iyaka na'budu. And we do this, by the way, every time not only we pray, but every time we get up. We're constantly giving ourselves back to Allah, constantly. Iyaka na'budu. I'm getting geeky with the wording, but na'bud, by the way, I'm probably going to lose you, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it anyway. Na'budu is present tense. I just probably half the room just fell asleep when I said the word present tense. Present tense versus past tense, especially in Arabic, is very important. Very, very important. I'll tell you why. In past tense, and especially in Arabic, you can say it happened once. Iyaka abadna, or whatever. Don't correct me on that later, okay? We gave ourselves up to you. We gave ourselves up to you. We worshipped you. Past tense. That could mean that we did it already. Abadna. We're done. Right? Na'budu means we constantly do it, and I'll do it again. I did it before, I'm doing it now, I'll do it next time I get up to you. I stand up in front of you. Iyaka na'budu. Right? I want to call out, because this is going to come back to us next week, inshallah. Really, when I say this is weird language, this is weird language. Right? Like you would, it's na'buduka is the normal. Na'buduka. Right? And this is like super unnatural that he put the ka, which means you. Like, we worship you. Na'budu ka. Right? We worship ka. We worship you. To really, really artificially bring that ka to the beginning is like really weird. I want to call this out. I'm not going to explain why, what the purpose of that is. I will tell you right now that iyaka in the beginning is a lot more weird than we give it credit for. The exclusivity, the emotion there is really bizarre, and grammatically it gives way to something amazing that I'm not going to talk about right now, but remember it for next week. Okay? Iyaka is strange. Just remember iyaka is very weird. Okay? Okay, anyway, where were we at? So, iyaka na'budu. Iyaka na'budu. We were talking about the difference, I mentioned a little bit, between worship and slavery. The difference between two, if we limit this to you alone we worship, then that means like I'll pray, but then in between Dhuhr and Nasid, it's fair. It's fair game. I do what I want, right? After Ramadan, I'm going back to how I was. I'll go to Hajj and then I'm straight. Like I'm good. I'm gonna go back to whatever I was doing before. That's worship. But when you have slavery, that's different. When do slaves get a break from being slaves? That's kind of the whole point. There's no clocking in and out. Like some people try to kind of water down the language. I don't know, maybe it's harsh, but some people do try to water down the language here, right? And they say, oh, we're your servants. The problem with servants is servants get breaks. Servants can go home, you know? Like I went to Germany, my brother took me to a castle, or what used to be a castle. And we went down to the chambers where we saw like the maids and maidens, or the maids, the servants and the maids, whatever. And we saw their life. And we even saw like their like kind of clocking in, their version of clocking in and out, where they had like a record of like, oh, like whoever such and such started at 6 a.m., went home at 6 p.m. and then went like, because she doesn't live in the castle. They wouldn't allow her in the castle. She went down to the city and slept and came back for the morning, right? So meaning the king doesn't have any effect on the maid when she goes down back to the town. What we're saying here is even when we're asleep, we're yours. Iyaka na'budu. Iyaka na'budu. And this goes back to the concept we talked about before. This idea that like you necessarily you are a slave to something. And you get to choose. Really the only choice you have in life is you get to choose who you give the other side of your collar to, the other side of your chain to. And you could give it to your own desires. You can give it to an employer. You can give it to a woman or to a man. You can give it to an idea, a philosophy. You can give it to a university, your own education, whatever. The list is long. People, pay attention to people. Pay attention to what's on people's minds. And you'll be able to be like, oh, he's a slave of this. Oh, this one, yeah, it's money. Oh, for her, yeah, it's her looks. Oh, for him, it's his job. You can tell if you pay attention enough. And Allah is saying these people are wise enough to pick who they want to worship, who they want to enslave themselves to. But there's no break in this. Meaning, after Ramadan, you're still a slave. You're done with Dhuhr, and you're still a slave. You do what the Rabb, what the Master, you follow the borders He set in your life, the boundaries He set for your life. You follow it even before salah, in between salahs. That's what Abd does. You understand? It's like a limit. You know what the Prophet ﷺ, his advice that he gave, where he's like, this world is Jannah for kuffar, Jannah for disbelievers, and Jahannam and a jail for believers. Use the word jail, I believe. It's a jail for believers and Jannah for disbelievers. You heard that hadith before? I'm not saying Allah had none, so it's a hadith. So I'll teach you again. The Prophet ﷺ, he taught us that this world, this dunya, is like Jannah for disbelievers and a jail, he's the word jail, for believers. You know the weird thing about it being a jail is that there's no bars. It's not like someone's watching you. You can do whatever you want. It's as if you yourself put those boundaries up. Like think about Yusuf alayhi salam when that woman tried to approach him. She's a very attractive woman and she had like the most beautiful woman in the land, and no one will ever find out about this. No one will read the story. You would think this doesn't belong in the Quran, by the way that Allah tells the story, but it's in the Quran. Like this woman approaches him, it says hayta lak, which if you knew what that means, it makes you blush. Like I'll just say it means come here, but it means, like, anyway, it's like anyway, I'm not getting into it, but come here. And no one will find out about this. And he screams, Ma'adallah, like I seek refuge in Allah. Who put up that jail? Did she put up the jail for him? No. He put up the bars himself. That's what a slave does. Like, I'm not going to disobey my master. Iyyaka na'budu. This is a willing thing that you choose to do. Iyyaka na'budu. And then we have iyyaka nasta'in. Is that an easy thing to do or a hard thing to do? Yeah, it's difficult. That sounds blasphemous too. But this is not an easy thing that Allah is expecting of us. To be a slave of Allah is not an easy thing that we're being asked about. That means the things that I would so easily do and so willingly. It's just like it was so easy for me to go and with my friends and do XYZ, whatever. It's so easy for me to be on my phone and just, oops, my finger slipped. It's so easy to earn money in a certain way you're not supposed to earn, or say something you're not supposed to say, or no one knows my relationship between me and my wife, so I can say whatever I want to my wife behind closed doors and smile for the cameras outside of closed doors when we have iftars or whatever. So easy to just let yourself go. It's difficult to restrain, very difficult. So notice what's the next part of this ayah. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And ya Allah, I can use help. This thing that I just committed to is, I don't know how I'm going to do it. And this is, we've been using tough language so far, but let me take it back a little bit because remember I told you Fatiha is about balance, right? There was a dude, this is a really funny story. I don't know if I shared this last week. There was a dude who, and don't get any wrong ideas about this, okay? But this is a hadith. Some guy, a Bedouin dude, which Bedouins back then were tough, He went up to the Prophet ﷺ and he's like, listen, I'll believe what you have to say. I'm only praying twice a day though. Well, how many times do you have to pray? 5. He's like, I'm only going to give you 2. What do you think the Prophet said? I'll take it. No, he said, no, do the 2. He actually accepted the Islam. He accepted it. Does that mean we only pray 2 times a day? No, that's not at all what I'm saying. Doesn't mean you get to cut. I'm going to make that extremely clear. Shadi said you could do 2 times. No, he didn't say that. No one said that. Okay, so I'll say no one said that. What does this mean? Everyone, Islam is a very attractive religion. Wallah, it's a very attractive deen. Like if you see people's face light up when you talk about this thing, it just makes sense. It clicks for them on an emotional level, intellectual. It clicks for them. It makes sense. But then comes the abd part. Like we just reached the abd part, like the slavery part, and we're like, dude, I don't know if I can do that. People, they're like, oh, I don't know if I could ever fast Ramadan. Like when you tell non-Muslims about it, like, I don't know if not even water, like that kind of language. You know what I mean? Really though. And really, you think about it like, yeah, it's hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, right? But what Allah is saying here is, you give yourself up. Iyyaka na'budu. Wherever you are, by the way. And I mean wherever you are, wherever you're at, not physically, spiritually, wherever you're at. Whether you're messing up constantly and you know what you're doing. Everyone here, I know what I do, you know what you do. I know what I don't do, you know what you don't do. Don't let me fool you because I'm holding a microphone. This doesn't mean anything. I have my issues like you have your issues. Everyone's got their problems. Things that you will never know about me that's in my heart, and things that you can see on the outside too, right? Like my terrible jokes. I have to make istighfar for those every single day, right? And you have your own things too. And those things might hold you back. Shaitan might come and be like, you really mess up a lot. And he might use that kind of psychology to trick you into thinking you're not good enough for this thing, or you can't do it. Iyyaka na'budu, you can't do that. You're going to stand in front of Allah and lie? Iyyaka na'budu, and you're going to do this after? You might think like this. Maybe you're obviously we're all imperfect. But what Allah is teaching us is, you commit to this thing wherever you are. Even if you're the worst, you're the scum of the earth. Who cares? You commit to this thing, and then I will do the rest for you. You do a little bit, like we say, you go to Allah walking, He comes to you running. And this is like kind of embedded in this ayah actually. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Allah is teaching us to say this. You alone exclusively, we give ourselves. We have to talk about that we, by the way. We have to talk about that in detail. That we, because you would expect iyyaka abudu. You alone, I enslave myself, but we're saying we. We got to talk about that. But anyway, iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. And we need your help. Wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ya Allah, I just committed to this thing. I just signed this contract and I'm walking away and I'm like, I don't know. This is going to be tough. This is going to be hard for me to do. 5 times a day is tough. Not eating for the month is tough. Not looking at what I want to look at is tough. Not talking to who I want to talk to is tough. Ya Allah, I can really use your help. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Let's talk about this word help. We just asked Allah for His help. By the way, just going into the order a little bit, because we're talking about why Allah chooses specific words and specific orders. Why would إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ come before إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ? Why do you think? Why isn't it إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ وَإِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ? Because the nasta'in is the fruit, is the juicy part. We can use help. So we'd expect that to be first. Why is إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ first? That's very good. That's one. Is number one, you put in the effort and then you ask for help. By the way, that's in the word nasta'in. Aun has many words for the word help, like nasr, you've heard of nasr. Aun is the word for help when you're already trying, actually. So that's a really good thought. Aun, إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ means you're already putting in effort and then you're already exhausted and then you call up like, dude, I can't do it. I need help, right? Like one example to understand this is you have a flat tire and you're putting up the tire, it's hard work, and you're maybe your arm gets tired or something, and then someone stops by and you're like, dude, can you please help? That's aun, because you already put in what? Effort. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ means we're telling Allah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ, I'm really trying hard to do this. Ya Allah, I can really use some help. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. That's one benefit. Another benefit, even going to, even like more principled from the beginning, is what comes first, the rights of Allah or what we get as a benefit? The rights of Allah come first. We're learning to put Allah, that Allah gets a right of way from this actually. And we're in Ramadan. We're literally putting Allah as a right of way before our physical needs. Like our animal needs are being put to the wayside. We're putting Allah first. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. Aun has with this word إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, a couple of things I want to talk about. Number one, usually if you ask for help, you would say, like if I'm like, hey, Qais, help. He just said no. I appreciate it, dude. Thank you. If I say help, and what would you think I should add after I ask for help? Yeah, help with what? Is there the help with what? Here, إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ? No, it's just blank. It's like a fill in the blank. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. A couple benefits from this in language, it's called tawassu bil ma'na in Arabic, meaning you expand the meaning of this. A couple benefits we get from this. Number one, إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, you don't fill in the blank because the one you're asking already knows. Like, Ya Allah, you already know what I need. I don't need to explain to you in detail, great detail. Here's A, B, C, D. Here's what's happening with my family, with my business, with my school, with my money, with my whatever. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, and I trust that you know exactly what I mean. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. That's number one. And by the way, I want to just إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ is not just with like the religion. Yeah. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, I need help with my health, with my finances, with my whatever, my marriage. I need help with my business. I need help with my family. I need help with blah 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 blah. Whatever you're trying to lift and you want to get buff. I need help with my fitness, whatever. Right? إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, you fill in that blank with anything and everything. And you don't have to fill it in because the one you're asking already knows. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. Number two, the list was so long that I'm just like, oh, help. When people get super desperate and they have a lot of things wrong. Like when your friend is super overwhelmed and she calls and she's like, I just need help, because she's overwhelmed. It's like you're so overwhelmed and you're taking all those burdens and you're like, Ya Allah, I don't know what to do anymore. إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. Like we're learning to be desperate to Him in this. Like the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, that he's like, even for the tip of your shoelace, ask from Him. The salt on your food, ask from Him. Be desperate towards Him. Like the dua of Musa alayhi salam, Rabbi inni lima anzalta ilayya min khayrin faqir. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful language. My master, my back, faqir is you're poor, your back is broken. Ya Rab, whatever good you can send my way, I'm needy. I'm poor, I'm homeless, I'm broke. My back's broken, I need something. Just that pure desperation. You come to Allah with desperation, He fills up your bag, fills it up with all the things you can need and more. When you go desperate to Him, إِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, there's desperation in there, okay? And then going to this next bit, we just asked for help. The next ayah gives us the one thing that if you get help in this regard, everything else follows suit. We just asked إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ. We need your help. And the next ayah fills in what is here. Allah's telling us here's one thing that if you ask for this thing and I give you this thing, then everything else falls into place. إِهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Guide us to Sirat al-Mustaqim. I'm not going to translate that because there's a lot of stuff going on in there. What I will do, because I feel like I'm pushing it a little bit, I'm really worried about you guys because I know it's like also last 10 nights so people are tired and stuff. Let me give you 3 minutes and we'll come back and talk about Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Okay, so we'll take a 3-minute break and we'll come back. We'll say 3:51. I'm super nice. I'll give you 10 more seconds also. Okay, 3:51 inshallah. Okay, we'll see you guys then. All right, we'll start again. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Omar just walked up to me and reminded me something about like the idea of being a slave. That's really beautiful actually. That should give you a lot of hope. It should give you a lot of hope. That even going back to the idea of slavery, you being a student, you being a husband, you being, whatever job title you are, you flip burgers at a restaurant or something, anything religious, or I don't want to use the word secular, anything that's directly tied to religion and anything not directly tied to religion, like your job and your relationship and whatever, all of that can be worship. We understand this as a concept. Yes, I hope at least Muslims should be common knowledge to a lot of us, at least to all of us. What should be common knowledge is that anything that you do can go back to Allah. So for example, I was talking to Azhar. Azhar is due any minute, mashallah, right? Like you guys, mashallah. But Azhar, he's having a second. I was talking to him, and he was like, man, like this kid's going to come, during Ramadan, I'm not going to be able to pray. Because, you have a kid, like a new kid. And I'm like, no, you're just trading one worship for another. You're just trading one worship for another. You changing that kid's diaper is ibadah. It's ibadah. As long as you do it with like the idea, I'm doing it for the sake of Allah, that anything I do, I'm a slave of Allah, so anything I do goes back to Him, then you studying for your exam is ibadah. Me doing my job that feels pointless can be ibadah. You taking care of your kid is ibadah. You cleaning up garbage side of the road is a worship, is you being a good slave. Yeah, so it's a powerful concept that we have that makes Muslims the best employees, that makes Muslims the best caretakers and the best fathers and mothers and whatever, right? Is this concept that everything we do goes back to Him. May Allah make us good slaves of Him, inshallah. Anyway, I talked about, where did we leave off? Is Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. The one thing that if we get this, then we're set for life, is guidance. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. The only thing that Fatiha gives us, because Fatiha at the end of the day is a dua, actually. When you zoom out of Fatiha and you look at it as a whole, Fatiha is just a dua, that Allah is, number one, teaching us how to talk to Him, but number two, He's teaching us what to ask for. And we're learning the first and foremost thing to ask for from Allah is what? Guidance. Is guidance. And let's talk, we'll go through the language and then take a step back and talk about it philosophically. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Guide us to Sirat al-Mustaqim. Let's talk about, first of all, hidayah, then I'll talk about the word us a little bit, okay? Actually, we'll keep us for next time. Let's talk about guidance first. Hidayah, or huda, comes from hidayah, which means gift, okay? So this was revealed, primarily the first people listening to this were the Arabs. When the Arabs were lost, where were they? Because we're talking about guidance. The opposite of being guided is being what? Lost. Allah actually compares guidance, or being guided and being lost, to light and darkness actually. So it's as if when we say Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, the imagery happening here is that I have no idea where I am. It's pitch black where I am. It's pitch dark. I can't even see my own hand. Allah says in the Quran, "Lam yakad idha," when He takes out His hand, "Lam yakad yaraha." He can barely even see His own hand. He doesn't even know who He is anymore. Sometimes we get to that kind of state, wallah. We get to such a dark state, we don't even know who we are anymore. Right? Like Allah says, have you seen the people who forgot Him, so He made them forget their own selves? Right? May Allah protect us from that. Even believers can get down to that low level of darkness sometimes though. The opposite of darkness is light. The opposite of being lost is being guided, So now every time you flick a switch, you think of Allah actually. That's how Allah does His marketing. Is the way you think of light is different now. Does that make sense? But we're saying Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, the imagery here, and this imagery is throughout the entire book, from Ayat al-Nur to the examples in Baqarah, just everywhere. We're going to talk about a lot of these examples. They're some of the most beautiful parts of the book, is when Allah gives examples of darkness and light. Is just you learn it once, you never forget it, wallah. Really, you learn it once, and as hard as you want to, you learn it in 10, 20 years, you'll still remember it deeply. And we're going to go over these after Ramadan together. I'll go over a few of them, inshallah, if Allah gives us the time to do so. But the imagery here is you're lost, you don't know where you are, it's completely dark, you can't even see your own hand, and all of a sudden someone what? Flips a switch and you're like, whoa. You ever see those videos where someone's like, not even blind, but just colorblind? and then they're given those color blind glasses, and they look around, they start crying. It's not like you were even blind. You could see. It's just you couldn't see blue or something. You know, not to belittle it. I'm not trying to be a jerk. Blue is great. Go blue. But you can't see blue or something or green. Is it green and red? They can't see green and red. But anyway, they put on the glasses and they look around, they start to cry. They get to see a tree, you know, for the first time. Or even more so, like when I've seen a video before where a kid was blind, like a baby, like he's maybe 1 or 2 years old. So he's like looking around, you see him like he doesn't know where to situate his head because everything looks the same, you know, so he's really confused. And he cries a lot because he can't see. And they give him a special pair of glasses. And he resists it, by the way, first, subhanAllah, the imagery here. He resists the glasses at first, just like we resist Allah at first too. And then it's on and he's like looking and he stops bobbling his head. Like how we're aimless in life. Like we don't even know where to look sometimes. We're like that kid with the bobbly head, like this, you know. And then we're given sight, ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim, and it's like, whoa, everything makes sense now. That's what this does to you. Like when you're given guidance from Allah, the things that were confusing are no longer confusing. The things that were painful are no longer painful. The things that used to trip you up, because when you're blind and you're in the dark and you have no light, you trip on things even. You can't see. Unless you're my wife, you trip on everything even when it's light. Well, she trips on everything, wallahi. Anyway, but normally it's dark, you trip a lot, right? It's dark and you trip a lot. And you turn on the switch and you're not tripping anymore. Like I see the obstacles. You're not going to trick me anymore. Thing on the floor. I can see now. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. Like how Allah says, يُخْرِجُكُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ. He takes you out from darknesses. And by the way, darknesses, like you had layers of it. Layers of it. You were hopeless. Even if you got rid of one room, it's another room of darkness. You got no hope. I take you out of darkness and I put you into light. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. Is the imagery there. But literally, it's just guidance. It comes from hidayah. Because when someone's like lost in the middle of the desert, what's the best gift you can give them? Yeah, it's guidance. Because even if you give them a cup of water because they're thirsty, it's like, okay, great, I'm not thirsty, but I'm still going to die. I'm just going to die later now, right? Because you're a gracious glass of water. And you went away with your camel or whatever, with your donkey, right? But the best thing you can give someone who's lost is what? Best gift is guidance. Go this way for a day's journey and you're good. You'll see an oasis. Thank you so much. And he starts crawling that way, right? Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. But actually, one really cool way to think about guidance is actually water. Like one time I learned this quote, and I'll connect it back to guidance in general. Originally it was about Quran, but I'll connect it to both. Guidance, and even your relationship with the book, but guidance, because that's all the Quran really is just guidance. Guidance is like a jug with a hole in the bottom. So you fill it up, you say, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, and Allah fills it up. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, and Allah fills it up. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, and Allah fills it up. And He fills this jug. But what's constantly happening? It's constantly dripping out. There's nothing you can do about that. This is the one thing. We talked about Allah being Ar-Rahman in the same surah. And Ar-Rahman gives everything to who? Everyone. No discrimination. No discrimination on who you are or what you believe or if you disbelieve in me or not. I'm Ar-Rahman to you. I'm going to give you everything and you don't have to ask. You don't have to ask Ar-Rahman. Ar-Rahman just gives. But guidance, we're learning, is the one thing that the only way to get it is to what? Ask for it. There's no other way to get guidance. What you're doing right now, learning, and what I'm doing right now, teaching, that's not how you get guidance. There's a very staunch difference, and Muslims do not understand this, especially practicing Muslims. And this is where a lot of evil comes about, actually. You know something scary about being a believer? Baqarah, second surah, yeah, obviously. After Fatiha, you flow into Baqarah. Baqarah, the audience of that are believers. You know, Baqarah goes out of its way, like half of it is just about hypocrisy. Why do you think that is? Is hypocrisy a problem for kuffar, for disbelievers? No. Hypocrisy, being a munafiq, is a problem for me and for you. That's what we're afraid of. So believers have sometimes this really perverted identity with Islam that the more I know, the more that I can teach others, the more Muslim I look. Like I put on the hijab, I grow a beard, I'll even wear a kufi. That's how Muslim I am, dude. I'm really Muslim. I'm like super Islamic. Like you look at, you're playing a role. Like you're dressing up as if you're a character. And you know a lot, by the way. Sometimes people know a lot. And they have no guidance. There's a big difference between you knowing something, you having knowledge of something, and you being what? Guided. Big difference. These are two totally different things. We hope that knowledge leads to guidance, but it's not necessarily the case. The only way to get guidance is what? Asking for it. And here goes into the beautiful desperation that Fatiha gives us. If I were to ask for water right now, well, I'm fasting, but if outside Ramadan, I'm asking for water, and no one gives me water, and I'm not dying, am I gonna lose my mind? Am I gonna go crazy? No, I'm not desperate. But if someone is in the middle of the desert, like you've seen people that were like found, you've seen like videos of people found in the middle of nowhere, and then a rescue team picks them up in a helicopter. Are they speaking like in a way where you can understand them? No. They're like, water, 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 water. They're like that, right? They're not even speaking. They're not using language. They're just saying the thing that they want. When people speak like that, you would say that person is extremely desperate, that they're not going to make it unless you give them water. There's no waiting 15 minutes for water. Get them something. They're desperate. When you ask for something over and over and over and over again, you're extremely needy. You need this thing. Pay attention to even your own language. The next time that you're desperate for something, you'll see yourself repeating the request over and over and over, right? You see yourself doing that. Are we repeating this request one time or over and over and over? Really think about this. You stand up for the hood, like right now we're going to stand up for Asr. We're going to stand up the first rak'ah and we're going to say, Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. And then we're going to go down. We're going to say, guide us, right? Ya Allah, I need guidance. And then we put our face down. And then we go back up and we ask again for what? Ya Allah, Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. Guide us. I really need guidance. And then you put your face on the floor. And then you go back up and you say what? Guide us. I really need guidance. I think I asked it last time, but I'm asking it one more time. I really need this. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. And then you put it down, your face on the floor again. And again, the fourth time, guide us. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. And then you're done. And then Maghrib comes and you're like, guide us. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. And you put your face on the floor. You get the idea, yes? You're annoying. You're learning to be annoying with this thing. You understand? You're learning to be desperate with this thing. I'm not going to make it if you don't give me this. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim. The same way that person would beg for water, you're begging for what? Guidance. And I want to go back to this idea of like it not being like knowledge, yeah? A lot of Quran is dedicated towards criticizing some of the Christians and the Jews, yes? A lot of Quran is dedicated to that. It's not anti-Semitic or anything. It just criticizes back to people that would do crimes in the Jewish community. That's all Quran does that a lot. Anyway, that's a conversation we're going to have a lot later, probably actually next week. We're going to talk about Christians and Jews a lot next week, actually. Because it's in Fatiha, actually. Towards the end, it's a little bit hinted towards their psychology. But, one thing that especially the Jewish community, what they did is they became super obsessed with knowledge. Super obsessed with knowledge. Obsessed with their scholarly community. Obsessed with their rabbis. Obsessed with their rabbis. To the point where they'll obey their rabbis over God himself. You know what Allah calls people of and it's not just talking about Jews, it's talking about me and you, by the way. He's talking about them for the benefit of who? Meaning we can fall in this trap. You know what Allah calls people who have a lot of knowledge but no guidance? You want to know what He calls them? He calls them donkeys. This is in Jum'ah, right? It's in Jum'ah. I think you and I were talking about this the other day. It's in Surat Jum'ah. He compares scholars even, but anyone that has a lot of knowledge. It could be me or you. Look. I can be like, look at all the pages I wrote. I'm so guided. I know so much more than you. I can be that kind of guy, yeah? I can be that tool. I can be that guy. Anyone can be that guy. Anyone can be that person. You know what Allah calls that person? They're like donkeys. Allah says, this is Allah's words. They're kind of like donkeys that hold books on their back. That's what they are. Like, by the way, asfara, like piles of books. You know how like you can pack a lot on a pack mule? Literally, it's called a pack mule. You ever see like a donkey with a lot of stuff packed in its bags? Where it's like to the left and to the right and above it. That's just packed and it's struggling to carry the weight. Allah's like, that's what they are. They're donkeys holding books. You know how beautiful that example is? Can a donkey benefit from the book? No. Even if the donkey could read, it's on its back anyway. So it can't benefit from the book. And the book, the knowledge that donkey has becomes a burden on him. Like, here's where your knowledge is going to take you. That's what Allah's telling this person. You understand? So Allah goes out of His way to explain this difference between knowledge and guidance. Me being able to teach you doesn't mean anything about me. This says nothing about Shadi Jibali. You going out of your way even to learn doesn't necessarily mean you're safe. It's a good thing. We know that the angels, for example, are around us right now making dua for us. We know this. There's benefits, inshallah, right? We know that there's benefits. It's not like I'm not saying it's worth nothing. But if you, again, this is about balance, right? We say Allah created everything in pairs. If you're someone who's obsessed with knowledge, but not obsessed with fixing yourself, not obsessed with using that knowledge, using what you learn here, me using what I learn here. This is a reminder for me too. I'm relearning stuff in Fatiha that I have to use now, right? If I don't use that stuff to benefit myself, to ask, to beg Allah for guidance and to fix my character and to fix even the people around me, my own family, my own wife, my own brothers, my mother, my father, whatever. If I'm not doing that, I'm a mule. Allah called me a mule, holding books. I don't benefit from the books and the books are a burden on me and I can't even read them. That's what I become. Ihdina Surat al-Mustaqim, we're learning that even someone who knows nothing, you don't have to know anything. You literally, in Fatiha, learned everything you have to know about Allah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malik Yawmiddin. Congratulations, you just graduated from the University of Al-Fatiha Institute. That's all you need. That's all you need. That's all the knowledge you need. And from here on out, He's teaching you how to beg for guidance. And I'll tell you too that disgusting character, probably the most disgusting character in humanity are people of knowledge, religious knowledge, Muslims, whatever, mainly Muslims, that have no guidance, do not care about fixing themselves, and push that authority on others. And I'll remind you, what is the first story of the Quran? The first story shared is what? You read it from chronological order. On page like 5 or 6, what's the first story you're given? No, that's the second. Adam and Iblis. And who was Iblis? Iblis was someone whose ego was hurt because he didn't get religious significance that he wanted. That's his story. He didn't get the sheikh position, and he got pissed. That's Iblis' story in a nutshell. You see why that's the first story you need to hear? Don't obsess with the knowledge. Don't obsess with the position. Don't obsess with he got this position and I didn't, or she learned this and I didn't. It has nothing to do with that. The most guided people are the ones who beg for this thing because they know they're lost. You admitting that you're lost, no matter who you are. You can be like Shaykh al-Islam. You can be a scholar of the deen. And even you have to put your face on the floor and beg for guidance. You have to even admit to Allah, even I'm lost. I don't know what I'm doing. Ya Allah, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina. I'm really pushing. I feel I'm pushing it today. Am I pushing it? Is it going a lot? Okay, you're shaking your head no, but I'm going to disbelieve in you. I'm going to, but it's kind of a lot. Can you guys handle like 10 more minutes? 10 more minutes, inshallah? Okay, 10 more minutes. All right, bismillah. Let's talk about Sirat al-Mustaqim at least a little bit. Okay, let's talk about the word Sirat. Oh, I actually have a slide for this. I'll put it up a little bit. Guide us to Sirat al-Mustaqim. How do you translate Sirat al-Mustaqim? Straight path. Guide us to the straight path. There's a couple problems with this, but we're going to go over why that's a problem. First of all, let's talk about the word Sirat. Okay? The word Sirat has five meanings in the word Sirat. So guide us to the Sirat. Let's just focus on the word guide us to the Ihdina as-Sirat. Okay? Guide us to the Sirat. There's 5 meanings in the word Sirat I want to give to you. The first one, funny enough, because Sirat obviously means path. Number 1, it means path. But there's a lot of words in Arabic. This is a classic thing of tafsir. There's a lot of words for this word. Why use this word? Like you have Sirat means path, but Sabil means path, and Tariq means path, and Shari' means path or street, right? You've even heard some of these even colloquially in Ami. You know that there's a bunch of words for the word like Shari' or whatever, right? You have all these words. Sirat is a path, and it has a lot of specific meanings because the Arabs were very annoying, mashallah, okay? So the first thing about Sirat is it's straight, which is weird because then what's Mustaqim doing there, right? Like if Sirat means the straight path, what's the word Mustaqim doing? It's kind of the mystery now, right? But anyway, Sirat, the first thing, like Sirat, a surat is a long straight sword. right? Like those two-handed weapons in video games are like, it's like a Surat. It's like a Surat, right? It's a long, straight sword without any deviation in the sword, okay? So there's no it's a very straight path. It's like a highway. There's no reason to bend. It's going to one direction, and it's one straight thing. The second thing, absolutely beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we should feel so grateful that Allah chose this word, wallahi. And here's one of the reasons. It actually means a wide road. So it's not just any straight path, because it could mean like a path that's super treacherous and like you're going through and it's hugging you. You know, like when you walk between two mountains, for example, if you're hiking, you know, and it's like you have to kind of squeeze your way through. That's not a sirat. It's straight, but it's not wide. What's the benefit of Allah using that word? Why is it really cool that Allah made it wide? Anyone can join. It's like super wide that like whoever you are, just come in. Ihdina sirat, like anyone can come in. You know, I think it was Ghazali or I forgot who, but someone had a poem that it was like I forgot the word I forgot in Arabic, but in English it was like he called it the caravan, and the caravan symbolized like Islam itself, the deen itself. And he's like, everyone, sinner or murderer or thief or whoever you are, just come in. Just come onto the caravan. Whoever you are, just you're welcome. That's sirat. It's like Allah making it so wide open that whoever you are, just get on the path. I don't care who you are. Whoever you are, get on the path. See how merciful that is, wallah? And look what we do, by the way. We take sirat and we make it what? Yeah, like, I don't know about you, dude. I don't know if we have room for you. Like, that's how we act. That's how we act. But the way that Allah teaches us, this is wide and anybody can join. Anybody can join. I don't care who you come from, what you do, whatever you do, whoever you hate, whoever you love, there's room for you. You know, subhanAllah. I love that. I think that's amazing. The third thing that's really cool about the word sirat, so the first thing, it's straight. The second thing, it's very wide. The third thing, there's only one. This is really interesting. You know, for example, you have tariq, which means a path, and then you have a plural, turuq. And then you have sabil, which means a path, and then you have subul, streets. And then you have, I think it's shari', and then you have, what's the word? Shawahir, yeah, thank you, shawahir. I think it's shawarma. I think I'm really hungry. I was thinking shawarma, I was like, it's definitely not that one. Get that on recording. Can we take that out, guys? You can't take that. Shawarma, shari' shawarma, okay? Sirat doesn't have a plural. Isn't that awesome? Like, it's so one that you can't even do a plural out of it. Subhanallah. Meaning Allah's telling us this is the only right path. Is this sirat al-mustaqim. Subhanallah. He chose a word that doesn't have a plural. That's just incredible. Like, literally, even if you chose a different word, you'd be like, oh, but there's multiple shawarmas. There's multiple turuq. There's no multiple sirat. Isn't that beautiful? It's like, follow the one and only path. That's number 3. Number 4, it's a super, super long journey. And we're going to get to that in a second and talk about that a little bit more. And the 5th thing, because it's so wide and because it's so long and because it's in the open, it's a straight path. You know, usually when you have a straight highway, it's in the middle of nowhere, like in Indiana, right? Nowhere, Indiana, you have a straight highway cutting through the city, through the state, right? Usually that means it's dangerous. That's the 5th meaning, actually. I'm putting them all up here for you if you need to remember. The 5th meaning is that it's dangerous. Why is it dangerous? Imagine you're walking. You know, you're walking down this path and it's super wide open. Who sees you? Anybody can see you. Robbers can see you. Thieves can see you. Highwaymen can see you. People that don't mean well for you can see you. People can pretend to be on the path and divert you away from the path, and then you're lost in the desert. It's dangerous because you're exposed to everybody. You're exposed to the elements, right? So how did we benefit from that? We know that just being on this path isn't enough. You have to stay on the path, yes? And there will be multiple parties trying to take you away from the path, which we will also talk about a little bit later. So it's ihdina as-sirat. So what is al-mustaqim? Mustaqim it means straight, but we already got the word straight from sirat. So is this like guide us to the super straight path? The straight squared path? Mustaqim comes from qama. What does qama mean? Or qiyam, for example. What is qiyam? Yeah, to stand up. So sirat al-mustaqim, in your head, you're probably thinking of a road, and Allah's talking about mustaqim. Sirat al-mustaqim, it's going straight up. when you do istiqamah of something, you're taking it and you're putting it up like this and you're keeping it there. Like if I put the pen, part of my brain is telling me to do it, but I feel like that'd be annoying for you. But if I kept something up, then I did istiqamah of it. Does that make sense? I did istiqamah of it. So when Allah says, guide us to Sirat al-Mustaqim, we're saying guide us to the straight path that goes straight what? Up. You know how Allah says He raises you in ranks? Literally, it's like you're climbing a ladder up to Him. And by the way, not only are you getting closer to Him, but you're leaving what behind? You're leaving dunya behind completely. Sirat al-Mustaqim, like you're getting less and less worldly. You're getting less and less vain. You're less and less in love with yourself and with your money and with whatever. You're just leaving the love of the world and getting closer to the love of Allah. And He's raising you in ranks. You're getting closer to Him. But you know what's really scary about this? Like if I climb up, imagine the Sirat al-Mustaqim like a ladder. Imagine it like a ladder. And I climb up 3 steps and I slip and I fall down or I jump off at 3 steps. Will anything really happen to me on like the third ring of the ladder? No. 3 steps, whatever. You fall off, you get back up on again, and you're fine. But if I climb up and climb up and climb up to the point where people look up and they can barely see me, and I fall, what happens to me? You plunge. You plunge into the earth. You're dead. You know why this is scary? Going back to the knowledge versus guidance thing, someone, maybe, they start feeling safe. Sometimes Muslims, they make the mistake of starting to feel safe. Like, man, I've been praying for years and I put on hijab and I stopped talking to people I shouldn't. Man, I'm good. These other people are lost, man. I got huda. Ihdina sirat al-mustaqim. I got guidance, man. I'm good. You know, you start thinking really highly of yourself. And Allah is saying, no, you are climbing up a ladder. The more you climb up this ladder, the less safe you should feel, actually. The more you climb up this ladder, the more in danger that you are. Does gravity stop working when you're going up? No. It becomes more of a threat. Way more of a threat. So while you're climbing up this ladder, up closer to Allah, you and I should feel even more uneasy of, I can't lose this. Begging for it becomes even more potent than someone just coming into the faith. Does that make sense? You begging for guidance, like, keep me here, please. Like, you're hugging that ladder. The person down there maybe is climbing and they're getting used to it, they're having a relationship with Sirat al-Mustaqim, but you're up on the 50th ring and you're like hugging it. Ya Allah, I can't lose this. It takes away any notion of arrogance when you say this. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Any notion of I'm better than the people below me is gone. 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 Because you know, if you fall, you're done. And Allah actually gives this example, by the way, that people that were people in the Jewish community that used the ayat of Allah and were guided by the ayat of Allah, and they got to a certain position in their community where they're giving lectures, for example, maybe, leading halakas, leading their MSAs, leading whatever, fill in the blank of whatever thing that you and I do that we try to give to other people, and I get super comfy in this chair, or check me out, I'm behind the blue cloth or whatever. You start thinking like this, right? You know what Allah says about them? Correct me if I'm wrong, I think, because you might know. ثَاقَلْتُمْ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. Right? Is that أَثْقَلَ فِي الْأَرْضِ, I believe. Or أَخْلَدَ, forgive me. أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. That they fell down. You ever watch like Looney Tunes where someone goes like that, and then they have the shape of their body in the earth? You know what I mean? Where like you have like the shape in the dirt of someone that fell in and they make a hole. That's أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. It's as if akhlada, by the way, to be permanent, like it's like he tattooed the earth how hard he fell. He like became a tattoo of the earth how hard he fell. Akhlada ila al-ard. You and I, when we go up this path and we start thinking highly of ourselves, like it's, maybe it catches on. The light starts to flicker on and you start to get more and more guided. You start to learn more and more. Alhamdulillah, good for you. And you get to a point where you feel a little bit more arrogant about yourself. Allah says these people, they fall in and they fall into the earth. They become even more worldly than someone who never entered it in the first place. That's what they become. So Sirat al-Mustaqim, it has a lot of hope in it. Yeah, it's wide, it's room for everybody. But the fact that it goes straight up, it's like you're climbing a ladder and you should feel nervous. Going back to begging for guidance over and over and over again. Yeah, you understand the imagery now? You need to beg for this thing constantly. You understand? I think I took enough time. What we're gonna do next week, I'm really, really psyched for next week. Next week is the last week. I don't know what the attendance will be because I know it's like getting closer to Eid. I welcome you to come. I think you're really going to benefit from it. We're going to cover the last ayah, Surat al-Ladina anamta alayhim ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim wa ad-dallin. There's so much to talk about here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Christian community, a little bit about the Jewish community. That might not make sense just yet, but just come and figure out what I'm talking about. And then what we're going to do, my favorite part of this whole thing, we're going to, so remember I told you guys that surah, what does surah mean? Yeah, the walls around a city is a surah, actually. So when Allah calls a chapter, we don't use the word chapter. We call it a surah. It's as if we're thinking of Fatiha like a city. Yeah, and there's so many intricate things. Like we've seen a Surat in the city. We've seen we've seen so many different, landmarks in this city that we can benefit from. Well, and what I've been doing with you is I've been taking you by the hand and we go into the gates of Fatiha and we go in and look at Alhamdulillah and look at Ar-Rahman and look at Ar-Rahim and look at Malik Yawmiddin. And next week, when we come back next week, we're going to do Surat al-Adina, whatever, to the end of it. But then what we're going to do at the end of it, inshallah, at the end of next week, we're going to get in a helicopter and fly above the city and look down as a whole macro. And there are so many things to see, guys. It's amazing. I can't wait to show it to you. I'm not even going to hint to you what it's going to be, but I welcome you and I invite you to be there, inshallah. We're going to end how we should be ending. I forgot to do it last week, but we'll do it this week. We'll end with reciting Surat al-Asr to each other as a reminder to each other, right? So we'll start and we'll end it with that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Quick translation. Allah swears by time that's running out that every individual human being is drowning in loss. إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا, except for those who believe. وعملوا الصالحات, those who do good deeds, the few deeds expected of them actually. وتواصوا بالحق. Yeah, consult each other. They advise and invite each other to the haqq, to the truth. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. And they invite each other with patience or even to patience. May Allah make us of them.